Yes, welcome back. And first I must tell you that this is going to be a very interactive session with you, our viewers, those of you who are watching from diaspora, from all around the world, on the internet, on m.channelstv.com. Continue to watch and be part of the show. You can tweet at us, just tweet at Kayode Akintemi. You will see the Twitter handle shortly, just below the line there. And then you'll also be able to interact with us by sending your tweets to @Channelstv. So, let me start with you, Colonel Stanlabo. Yes. You listened to the speech of the president today. Mm-hmm. What's your thought when you look at the fact that everyone has said that the number one problem that plagued this nation in the last 4 years, that everybody seemed to talk about almost every day, was the issue of insecurity in the Northeast? What's your thought about the first Independence Day speech by the president today?
First and foremost, the speech was quite brief, but despite that, I think it was able to capture enough of our worries and concerns. I'm impressed that, of course, he talked about the insecurity issues which is plaguing the nation right now. And I think to a greater extent, we are reassured by the steps he's taking as the Commander-in-Chief to address the situations in the Northeast, more so given all the steps he had taken in that direction. You know, one want to see him as somebody who is fully committed to addressing the issues of the Northeast, you know. And when you also place that side by certain comments he made in New York, especially in relation to the recovery of our girls from Chibok and so on, I feel really impressed with that. Thank God he's been able to meet with the deadline which he gave himself in respect of the submission of the list of the ministers. Yes. And I think we are just looking forward to seeing that yes. the champions who will be emerging. Yes, the champions who will be emerging eventually.
The champions that will be, as they call them.
Yeah,
okay.
All right. We'll be able to meet our expectations.
Let me ask you, Prof. Ngozi Osara. When you look at what the president focused on in that speech, in my opening presentation, I looked at the fact that education is probably the key to solving the problem of insurrection or insurgency in the Northeast. Was there anything in there that gave you the impression that this is a priority of this government?
Is there anything in there? He talked about the Northeast, he talked about insurrection, and he talked about what is going on. And even if it's not clearly explicit, as one would have expected it to be, his other utterances, his other actions have given indications that education. Because it's not only the insurrections, it's not only that. For us to get out of any of the problems that is confronting us today is education.
So the last 120 days, if you were to do an assessment prior to the speech today, is there something that you will say points to the fact that this government will take education seriously?
I don't want to pigeonhole. I don't want to, but the speech was okay.
The speech was okay as far as you're concerned. Okay, then let me...
The speech was okay. He was honest, though brief. Colonel was saying he's brief. Of course, you should expect that from a military man.
Okay.
It was brief, but direct.
Yes.
And he touched so many things. Mm-hmm. He still went on to remind us soberingly why we voted for him. Because we must not forget that Nigeria is our country, and we must continue in that unity of purpose.
Okay, so as a political scientist then, Professor Fajoyomi, Do you think that there is enough meat in this 10, I think it's about 11 minutes, 10 seconds or so? Do you think there is enough meat in it for you to say he's addressed the key issues for us as a nation?
I think in communication, first of all, there's the body language, which he actually demonstrated. Then some people will tell you, read my lips. I think we were able to understand his intentions, his body language. They both actually showed that he meant business. You know, people that want to deceive people, they tend to make long speeches, they wear you out. Then after wearing you out, you finish, you clap, then you now want to go back home and find out what has he said. But in this case, all those things he meant to do were appropriately highlighted based on people's anxiety, which he said, do not be anxious. I know what I'm doing, and I believe you trusted me. Please don't lose that trust in me as I begin to now implement. I think that is good enough.
How long is that trust likely to be? Because a lot of people have said that the honeymoon period is gradually winding down, because once you hit the 3 months mark, you expect it to be up and running.
Is Nigeria not up and running? Nigeria is up and running. If you ask a common man whether Nigeria has changed, they will tell you it has changed. People now said maybe because of the personality of the leader. And that is why people are just changing their attitudes. The policies are not coming in yet. But that does not mean that something is not being done. In fact, people had questioned, they asked certain questions. What has changed in discourse? Is it the music? What has changed in Jenkos? Is it Dizu? Or I don't know. So most of the things that were not working before now started working because of maybe the intervention. That the type of intervention we've got, nobody is even actually talking about it because no policy statement had been made. But the body language is enough. That means that by the time we even begin to now make the speeches, I think the speed at which are going to launch most of these policies are going to be very impressive. And I want to actually advise, let us wait.
Okay, Prof, let me ask you now, when you look at the key part of the issues that face us today in the country, there are universities that are still under lock and key because of some kind of problem. There are maybe very few of them. There are polytechnics that have issues. The institutions of higher learning, there are places there that the infrastructure there, they are nothing to write home about. At what point would you like to see that same mantra, education, education, education?
You see, it's very interesting what you are asking me to say. Because
just say it.
In the first place, who is the driver? Is the driver of the education policies. That is the issue here. I want to say here that we were on strike for about 6 months. So many people condemned the universities. The polytechnics were on strike for almost a year. They condemned them, and eventually people were prevailed on go back to work. And we went back to work. And nothing substantial. There was an agreement of release of funds. The first tranche was released over a year ago. And if you know, like you were saying, if you know the level of decay of infrastructure, that is also why some people like me don't believe in having new universities. Let us channel that money to ensure that the ones we have are well equipped. Education, yes. That is the only thing that can help us. But we have to think about the driver of that education.
So who will be the driver? What kind of person would you like to see?
Somebody that has compassion. You know, it is unfortunate that in Nigeria, everybody is an expert on education. Everybody is an expert on education. When a governor wants to appoint commissioner for education, he will pick a lawyer. When the president appoints commissioner, it will be a lawyer. But when they want to appoint an attorney general, they don't look for the educationist or the political scientist or the engineer. You know, it is not just being interested in education. It's having a passion, a deep passion, and knowing that the policies must be properly implemented. Why? The political will. We have very beautiful policies. We have policies. It's the political will to implement those policies to the letter and getting the person that will be able to do it. And if you are brought in to do it and you are not allowed to do it, we have gotten to the level that we should be able to resign. This is what I've come to do. I'm not able to do it. I can't be here and I have to go away.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take a short break. When we come back, one of the things I want to very quickly talk to Colonel Stan Labo here will be the issue of the IDPs. Because if we fail to address that issue, some analysts have said that's going to be the next opportunity for those insurgents to recruit more people. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, there'll be more conversation coming your way.